there's the Air Navigation or Statute Law set an act. That's what you have to abide by in the air. I don't care what anyone says about bylaws. That's not it.
Welcome back to part 2 of our interview with Andrew McQuillan of Crowded Space Drones, where we discuss his fascinating origin story in drones, including Game of Thrones, and talk UK regulation and where you can fly your drone. You can find a link in the description to part 1 of the interview where we discuss the business of detecting drones. Now, you've got a very unique origin story within the drone world, which involves Game of Thrones.
Well, even before, I'll go back to even before that.
Thank you.
So, do you remember a TV show called Airport on BBC?
I do, yes.
This is a really weird sort of segue. Do you remember a guy who ran Aeroflot called Jeremy Spake?
I do, actually, yes. I used to really like that show, so yes, okay. I actually do remember.
He's been in my house several times.
Wow.
And the reason why is when I was a teenager, I built a full-scale Airbus A320 simulator in my garage.
Oh, wow.
Fly around the world for charity and different things, but it was good fun. And we had BMI pilots come and fly it to do their check rides before they went to do their sim stuff. And so I had this really sort of aviation interest back in the day. So then fast forward, well, that was like 2004, I think. So fast forward sort of just under 10 years. I became head of security for Game of Thrones, which is filmed in Northern Ireland, or was filmed. It's not doesn't happen anymore.
No, indeed.
And we had, are you a Game of Thrones fan?
Do you know, I'm actually not. I've watched one episode and yes.
Very nearly how much I've watched, because when you've seen behind the scenes and you see the different parts, you're
absolutely
like, solution in terms of what order was that in, and you know what's happening in the head of anyway, so there's no point watching. So we had a character called Jon Snow who
yes.
was supposed to be dead, but we were filming the next series with them. And the next series was a large battle sequence, which was filmed for 6 months in the mud in a rural area of Northern Ireland, but not rural enough to. It's still easy to get to. It's only like 30 minutes from Belfast. So this is back sort of. We started working with Game of Thrones sort of around the Olympics times 2012. So
okay,
probably 2013. Well, we had our first drone incident, and that was actually we had a funeral sequence with horses, and the horses got spooked by a very low flying Phantom 2.
Wow. That
person then subsequently sold footage to press. Now, we don't necessarily care that much about that because Warner Brothers and HBO, who own it, they deal with that very quickly. Whereas the drone spooked the horses, and that's a safety issue.
Yes, absolutely.
So we started looking at how to deal with those drones coming on the set, mostly from a safety point of view, because we know Warner Brothers could stop the images getting into press for the most part at their end, so we don't need to worry about getting the images held back. And also, photos don't just prove who was there. They don't say, dialogue is the crucial bit for TV and film.
Absolutely.
Dialogue getting out. And so we dealt with that drone person. We got them, we found them purely from security sweeps, because we basically just, the response back then, in 2012, 2013, was cover everywhere with security.
Yes, of course.
We'll find the pilot, just follow it back. And that's what we did. And that was easy enough because it was very rare to have a drone incident, and we were filming like in rural areas and cliff areas, so you could see for a long period of time. And we typically had paid to rent the field they were flying from, so we could evict them anyway. Crikey,
excellent.
Almost unlimited budget in that respect in terms of protecting the integrity of the show.
Yes, of course.
So the worst bit for that was, and I remember, I think it was a Parrot drone, and the problem was that the camera was fixed at the front.
Yes.
It was the first time paparazzi had used drones that I'm aware of in the UK to try and evade security measures on the set. And I remember they were flying the drone forwards, but because it was a fixed gimbal, it was having to look down. They were having to fly forwards on a quadcopter, so they couldn't sort of stand still and film because they were looking straight ahead. So that was quite good because drone technology was nowhere near what it is today. So we actually weren't having that big a problem in terms of images. It was more the safety issue. And if you've ever been around a film set, noise is a crucial thing. A very loud quadcopter.
Yes.
Sound problem in a film set.
Yes, there was enough kickback when a modern Starbucks cup turned up in one episode once, wasn't there? A Parrot Bebop drone flying past Jon Snow's head. Yeah, it wouldn't be very good.
Yeah, and it's so we continuity is king in that sort of environment, and there's people who check for that, and obviously the sound guys listening are going to go, I can hear it. It's the same as cars, so we close some roads and things to stop car noise coming in. The same thing we had to do for drones was just take up as much land. If you're going to be flying 500 meters, that's fine. We'll rent everything within 500 meters.
Excellent.
So you're illegally flying. So that was under the 2009 Air Navigation Order, which wasn't as good as what we currently have in the 2016 edition. So we dealt with that. One of our team then was requested to go on to Star Wars, where they remain to this day. And we were dealing with, actually on that one, they were predominantly using helicopters. So bigger film, bigger interest for media, therefore they can use the helicopters. But helicopters have a very large registration number written on the side of the aircraft that can be reported for dangerous flying or illegal flying or whatever that it's going to be. So drones weren't initially really a problem for that, compared to the way we did we had it for Game of Thrones. So that really sparked my interest in drones. From that point onward, 2014, when they were starting to get popular, and the Phantom 3 I think was just out maybe or something around that time. Then I decided that from a crowd management bit, I wanted to also positively use them, because I could see essentially, the way I describe it in that respect is a flying CCTV camera. And sod's law, if you're running a major event, even if it's a stadium or somewhere, your CCTV camera will probably be just out of the area you want to look at.
Absolutely.
Where the crowd problem happens. And therefore, what's the best way around that? A flying CCTV camera.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just that vantage point gives you so much information, so much data.
You know, some events are having to deploy 20 or 30 static CCTV cameras temporarily around, whereas one drone could actually cover the whole duration of that and look at incidents depending on the volume of incidents.
Absolutely.
So that was the sort of main reason I wanted to start getting into the drone world as well. And then really from that, getting into the drone world, we took that specialism and we sort of rolled with it. So we're quite lucky that we work for most of the major music festivals and things in the UK, Live Nation, AG, etc. And then really it's those sort of events, the sort of experience of doing that, and there's those major events all network with each other.
And is that from the crowd point of view, or do you also work on the drone detection?
Two ways. So initially, yes, it was from crowds, because they had never seen anything like this before, and they were just, this is amazing. And sort of any shiny new toy, we were just lucky to be there first to an extent.
Indeed.
And this is before we had an OSC, so we were doing this 150 meters away, and they were still like, this is the best thing we've ever seen. Then from that, people start to get word of that and sort of want us more. And we got the OSC for the first time, and we sort of got closer to the crowd, which is even better. I mean, one of the first things we did was we put this 19mm thermal camera in the Inspire 1, because that's what was the modern tech at the time, and back in 2017 for festivals. They didn't like it. Actually, it was actually more useful to see the live picture during daylight of the crowd. I thought, you'll want to see thermal images like the police helicopter images that we sometimes get in a downlink. But it was actually better to see high quality HD live pictures of the crowd, because you actually get more detail rather than the heat map, because you could physically see who's close together.
Yes.
So that actually really helped. And then it's going from that, we now deal with a wide range of incidents. Then sort of some festivals who have smaller budgets then end up wanting us to do marketing stuff as well, because it's sort of half goes to marketing costs, half goes to safety costs.
Excellent.
And then we have some festivals who, like Creamfields, who just deploy several drone teams just to film the festival. There is no safety function. We just film with essentially X7 Inspire 2s for the most part. So it's a very mixed bag. But
it sounds it.
There's a lot of chain reaction as to how we've got a lot of that work.
Yeah, which is fantastic. I mean, it's always ensuring, whenever somebody looks at starting a drone business, they always say, don't start a drone business, bring drones into your business. So if you've got something you're already doing and a drone will enhance that work, then you're already getting paid for using that drone before you even buy a drone or learn how to fly one. And that certainly sounds like precisely the kind of business plan that you've developed, where you've spread drones and also used them as much as possible, because you are getting the cinematography stuff for the festivals, as well as the crowd management and now the drone detection, etc. There has to be a reason for those drones, for a client to want to fork over money to have you fly those around. And
there's lots of clients out there who don't want to pay very much money at all. Like we did put our toe very carefully into the estate agent market.
Oh yes,
because 50% of them wouldn't pay because it wasn't the exact right angle.
Yeah.
And then the one that really annoyed me, to the point where not wanting to do any more, we don't do any estate agent photographs anymore out of choice, is somebody had a house on a slight hill. They wanted a photograph essentially from their front window of the house showing the bay outside.
Right.
I had to fly like 30 meters above the house to get the bay in shot. And it was not the right type of view because it doesn't look like it's from the window. You can't see the bay from the window. But they wanted this drone shot that they thought they could, sell the house instantly of the bay. So it was not there. There's some jobs in the drone industry that will consume you with clients and other things so much that you will not be able to get big or excel. And get big could be any number of, it could be lots of pilots or lots of drones or lots of money, whatever. It doesn't have to be, all of them. But whatever you want to get to, there's some aspects of the market you will never get there.
Absolutely.
And that's why you have to sort of focus on, again, as you said, what coming into drones as a tool, but also not the scattergun approach will never work. If you were taking all the different types of work, you'll end up taking some very low volume work, or to the point of you're bidding for things, outpricing them when it's not the market price. The market price for staging photography is, probably $250 at most for a house. For a bog standard, obviously luxury house can be more and things, but that's the sort of market price we've seen, and that doesn't, whereas you could be getting 3 times that doing other type of work.
Exactly. We do have what I would say is a confused situation with local authorities and what they're able to do, because again, it's with a lot of them, it is the brick wall that you were talking about, where you just do not fly your drones in our area.
We are doing some work in this area at the moment to try and open access. So I get this from both sides, but I do think that the misunderstanding is purely on the side of the local authorities, in most cases, not the drone pilots. The air navigation order covers you once you're in it does cover takeoff bits as well, but once you're in the air, it's the air navigation order and some other aviation legislation, which sort of refers to privacy and things. That's what covers you when you're flying. So there's no, the same as America, what the judge in that case, I believe, basically said federal law can't be, local law can't out federal law. The same in the UK, bylaws especially when the bylaw isn't the local authority, it's maybe like a heritage organisation.
Yes.
or a river operator in London, because there's so many of those. But no, they where there's the air navigation or statute law set in that. That's what you have to abide by in the air. I don't care what anyone says about bylaws. That's not it. The takeoff and landing bit, now that's where those come into play.
Yes.
From a local authority point, this is what we're doing some work on, is we get completely that a legal services department in the council will say whoever's doing it has to be insured and has to have some sort of benchmark. The problem is a lot of them as well are using the benchmark for competency of PIFCO. Or see.
Yes.
The problem, I think that's because these things take 6 months to a year sometimes to create a policy. So they maybe didn't have the drone registration and licensing scheme in them.
Perhaps.
One of the things we're trying to do with some of the work we're doing is make them adapt that policy to accept flyer ID, and also more so the EASA stuff, because there's going to be more questions and it feels more comprehensive.
Absolutely.
So I think that's the point we're trying to get to. That does not, again, it doesn't come down to, you may not have access to all airspace you want, or in terms of takeoff areas and things like parks. So there may be, they decide this, like in London's a brilliant example because Richmond Park have a flying field.
Yes, which I actually frequent myself, which is.
That's when people want to like go out with us, your friends or people we work with, and we say, right, well, we'll go to Richmond Flying Field because that's sort of the easiest thing to do because it's a perfect space out of the way. Yes, it can be a congested area. So you still have to keep that in mind if it's busy parking things or.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you pick the right times of day and the right days of the week and things, it can be a very unique flying spot.
Yeah, and it's the key thing is there are councils out there that are getting it, like Richmond, and say, right, let's have a designated space. I think in, sorry, don't quote me on this, but I think it's, there's the old Croydon Airport in South London, and that's got all runways and stuff. That's quite far away from other houses and things, so that could be quite good. But some councils have smaller parks that are probably inappropriate for drone use.
Absolutely.
Purely from you can't assume every park is suitable for that.
Yes.
That's why we have to get this balance of what the drone pilot wants to do and what the council want to protect themselves from. The biggest thing we're trying to avoid is sort of like is requirement of insurance. So the problem is the insurance industry says we need some sort of qualification or license to to insure you, to assess competency. The other, but if you're walking down the street or walking through a council park, you don't require insurance for you. Or if you cycle through a council park, no one's saying, where's your cycle insurance?
Absolutely.
And you could knock someone over a lot quicker with a bicycle than the likelihood of a drone falling out, without maliciously doing it. So we're trying to work through those issues with various councils, and we're hopefully going to get to a point where there's a nationally adopted policy on this.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, I mean that would change the hobby for a lot of people, because that is one of the main things. One of the main questions that I get non-stop really is, hey, I've got this park locally, can I fly from there? And the answer always is, it depends. But to have a national policy would be, or a nationally adopted policy would be very useful.
Well, the problem as well is, so the people assume the CEA are responsible for this. The CEA drone unit has got a lot smaller in recent months, but they're sort of building up again. It's small to start off with. They are swamped with COVID has given them so many extra applications from sort of COVID, or sort of from OSC applications, emergency services uses. They are swamped categorically. It maybe didn't help. I just nicked their leader as well.
Yes.
But they're swamped. It is not, if it was utopian, they were just twiddling their thumbs all day. Yes, they could probably take a look at the council sort of issues in terms of policies, but it's not legally within their purview either. And it's more of a Department of Transport issue, and they don't really want to deal with it.
No, indeed.
Because it's a local issue. Their attitude is the law is the ANO is the law. That's it. That's what you abide to. So yeah, the councils have been left with legal services telling them we have to do something. It's a threat, which is sometimes precipitated on the event side by the police saying there's a threat from drones. And then the council's legal team said, well, how can we defend ourselves from, stopping it? So stop them being taken off a landing, make them have insurance, make them apply for use. Whereas there is an ecosystem where everyone can get their own way to an extent. And, again, no one's stopping cycling through parks.
Exactly, yes.
So I think we'll get there. I don't know how long it'll take.
Yes. I'm hoping once if I would say if for the parts of my audience that don't think they're still going to come in, if and when the EASA regulations are fully adopted,
yeah.
I'm hoping that will create more of a launch pad for these type of things to be agreed as well, because of course it's very difficult to talk councils into changing policy when there's a change to regulations full stop for the use of that device around the corner.
That's part of one of the concerns we have in terms of what we're doing is so we can create the policy in Air Navigation 2016. The problem is some of the examples that have been very public in the press and things about stopping drones, that's probably taken we've been aware of that for a year before, so it's taken about a year to get through. The problem being, if we create a policy now and in January we change, if that's the date, then the council may be asking you to do something that you can't do anymore because the EASA's coming.
Exactly.
So it's about having a nimble policy that will adapt with the rules without having to go through a year of approvals.
Indeed, because they are going to have a new raft of differently qualified pilots, and you're going to have a lot of hobbyists with the A2 CFC. That perhaps that is something that local authorities can grab onto and say, actually, there is a level of competency there at least to allow flights, and especially because if they hold the A2 CFC once the drone class drones are out there, the law allows you to fly in so much closer, so that could improve things.
Yeah, I mean, for the specific category or what essentially is PIFCO at the moment, I do think we'll get to the point with this where you'll get access, but you'll have to go through the application process and prove a bit more. There's more risk in terms of, I do like the new EASA regs that if you're flying Inspire 2, the risk is somewhat the same. So if you've complied with all the training, the risk is the same to a commercial job and a private job.
Absolutely.
can then mitigate the commercial job risks in a specific category by, for example, a closed set or controlling areas and different things, have security staff. So I do think we'll get to the concept of where you'll probably pay a small fee potentially for access for, I'm not talking about for flying over council land, purely for, I want to close off this bit and take off from here.
Yes, absolutely.
I do think for commercial users, we will get to the point where the specific category, you'll pay a small fee. Now, one of the things we're doing within what we're trying to do is make that bear as small as possible from the council.
Absolutely.
To make sure that if they are going to charge, it's very much of their own personal decision, that they're not used as this is not a cash cow, especially for the hobbyist. But the commercial operator, they're being paid to be there. There's budgets involved. But again, one council in London wants to charge $2,000 to look at an application form.
Ooh, crikey!
That's ridiculous.
That would just stop all flights, wouldn't it? Really, this is
exactly. Funnily enough, there's not much. I don't believe there's that much commercial drone work in that council area. So the key thing is to make it proportionate. Hundreds, not thousands at most. And that's purely for where there's going to be legwork from the council to give you a park ranger or whatever to help you close off stuff or permission to do that. And obviously they've got processes and things, and it has to be really transparent. So it can't just be we're charging you $5,000 to close off a park.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
you usually get it from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. Yeah. It has to be this is what we need to do to make this drone flight safe. There's a minor cost to that in terms of sorting out, doing emails, because obviously council time has to be accounted for.
Absolutely.
So I'd rather pay this is not a figure, I'd rather pay like £100, £200 but gives me control of that area, so
completely. And I think most PFCO pilots would agree with you there.
But not for hobbyists.
Yes, no, indeed, yes.
And that's what we're trying to achieve with this. Luckily, councils are a bit like Domino's. Not the pizza company, but they're like Domino's in terms of once one adopts something, they go, oh wait, there's a standard here, let's adopt it. So we're confident that something will happen across at least a large chunk. And we are targeting ones that maybe have a little bit of a worse policy decision at the moment. And I love it's due to misunderstanding. I mean, lots of them, I see lots of policies that coach air navigation over 2009. The policy was issued this year. I've rewritten multiple policies for people like horse racing things and stuff where, is even pre-2009 legislation mentioned some of the policies. So it's about making sure the policies fit for purpose.
Exactly.
And educate people, because a lot of people don't know about the drone law. You have to be somewhat of a nerd to want to know the ins and outs of, especially now we've got like A through H or I or whatever it is now in 95 in their navigation, or since the Heathrow and Gatwick stuff.
Yes.
So much extra to it. It is ridiculously complicated. So we're trying to make sure access can be opened up as much as possible.
Absolutely. And standardizing is really one of the keys there, because the more you standardize it, the easier it is to publicize, and therefore the easier it is to get hobbyists with their Mavic Minis, etc. to and I'm not picking on you Mavic Mini flyers, sorry. I mentioned Mavic Mini a few times. But the easier it is to get those kinds of flyers to stick to those rules, because if it's the same, if it's standardized, whether you're trying to fly in Richmond or Woking or Devon, then you're going to have a lot more compliance there. People are going to get used to that system and won't mind, especially if it's a digital system as well. Going onto a local authority website, and it's always drone permission.html, and then you just literally fill out your details, etc. Then again, that delivers a lot of control and answer and accountability back to the local authority, because if something does happen with that drone flight, they're able to also say to Mrs. H, who's had her car run into by a drone, and say, well, we know that there were 3 hobbyist drone flyers in that area on that day, so here's the information, we'll pass it on to the police, and it can be looked into. So it delivers control to everybody involved. So that's extremely positive.
Whereby we have a designated location like Richmond do.
Yes.
That would be utopia. Every council says this park is the park you can drone fly in. And then also there's an expectation from the public of, if everyone starts to know this is the park that the drone flying happens in, they can avoid it if they don't like drones.
Exactly.
Be more aware of it, because it's not, I get that, yes, the law says that you have to make sure you don't endanger anyone with a drone. But at the same time, people could then have the option of not going into the park if they don't like there's a drone there.
That's right.
Residents' concerns about privacy can be addressed in that respect. Sometimes residents' concerns about privacy are way above what the law says. And what, the problem is, And sometimes about, you know, we have lots of residents who've complained about different festival things and all before, and you're like, well, come and see the drone, we'll show you the footage, because we can't see in your house. There's lots of people who are waving at our drones sometimes, and you're going, we're not even looking at you.
Yeah, why are you waving? Yes, and as you say, even down to the hobbyist level, sometimes someone approaching you will just want to see what you're doing rather than necessarily starting an argument. I've shown more mothers out with their children and shown the children, especially when I used to fly the parrots with the huge sky controller, so I had a very big tablet in the middle, and it was always easy to show them very quickly, and they're just interested to see what was being captured, etc. But it is a good way, as well, as you say, of showing the lack of detail. And most of them were like, well, "Oh, right, you can't really see as much as I thought you could." Was generally the response I used to get, because with your standard prosumer drone, you really can't see that much without zooming in, etc. Thank you to Andrew McQuillan of Crowded Space Drones, who was very generous with his time and allowed us a real insight into what his company does, his origin story, and his views on drone flight. Thanks for joining us today on Geeksvana. See you in the next video.
Please remember to like and subscribe.
All right, you're still here. No in the seat.